Thanks everybody for joining us today. I will have a quick introduction about our company. Our company is Foke GKN. We started in Mexico. As you know, it's a European company and decided to start in Mexico 6 years ago. We started with the construction of the factory from Greenfield, and we started operations 5 years ago. Basically, you can see the plant back on the screens. And in the next slide, what would we produce? We produce the empennages for 3 models of Cessna, the Sovereign, the Citation 4, the Citation 3, and also we get award with the contract for the first aircraft of Honda. So we are building the empennage for the Honda Jet recently for the last 2 years. Also, we bring new technology on not only sheet metal, but also we bring composites. Right now, we have the floorboards construction for the 450, 550, and 650 aircrafts of Gulfstream. And the next step for us is after the assembly of the composite, we're planning to bring the manufacturing of the composite itself in our plant next year. About our capabilities, we do big aerostructures, as we mentioned. Next slide, please. So we have capabilities in additional to the normal assembly of sheet metal or big aerostructures. As we mentioned, we have the floorboards installation, we have painting, polishing, and finishing. Next slide, please. Also, we have space for growing the factory in 4 phases. We're on the phase 1 right now. We're planning to bring another project, commercial, and then we're going to start the expansion next year, and we're going to end up with 4 plants in the 2024. So in conclusion, we're planning to expand our factory 4 times in the next 7 to 8 years. Next slide, please. This is a little bit more clear, the expansion plans. As you can see there, is 4 phases. Each one of them has 120,000 hours and 7,500 meters. And you can see the plan every 2 years, more or less, we have a new plant, and we get a new program every 6 months. That's our plan. If you are a potential customer, you are welcome. Next, please. So this is how the plant will look on 2024, and it's around 600 employees. Right now we have 150 in the first plant. Next slide, please. So in general, this is our capabilities. We can do composite aerostructures, we can do composite floorboards and interiors, sheet metal, harness installation, sealing application, and also engineering services supported by the corp offices at the Netherlands. Basically, we're also open to new technologies or new processes if we need to, and basically it's what we do in Chihuahua. Our experience is really positive, and I think in general is what we do in our plant in Chihuahua. Thank you.
Thank you. Invite Armando to also give us his presentation. And then afterwards, I'm going to start asking a couple of questions in regards of challenges that we're facing in the value integration of supply chains with, from the private perspective side, from the company side, and also from the government side. So Armando, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Javier. Thank you very much, the organizers, for the kind invitation to this panel. We are really, really glad to participate and to share with you some ideas, thoughts, and supports that the federal government is offering to companies like yours. Thank you very much, Jose Luis, also for your presence here. Well, first of all, next. Yes. First of all, I would like to say, for those who are not familiarized with ProMéxico, ProMéxico is the federal government entity responsible for 3 main objectives. The first one is to attract foreign direct investment into the country. The second one, to promote exports worldwide. And the third one, internationalization of Mexican companies. And our main goal is to connect business opportunities. Recently, we are organizing business meetings in order to match supply and demand in terms of the aerospace industry. For us, it's really, really important that companies know all the capabilities that the country has in the aerospace industry, as well as the potential demand existing as well. And in this regard, we have been working together with several entities, private and public. As part of the Ministry of Economy, we are coordinating several efforts in the aerospace industry, as well as with FEMIA. And you can see here some publications that we have made together with them in order to clarify the goals of the aerospace industry in the following years. The first one is the roadmap for the aerospace industry, where you can find different product and processes existing in the country. The second one is regional roadmaps. These documents were worked together with the clusters in the country, just to give you an idea, with the Querétaro cluster, Chihuahua, Nuevo León, in order to define what are the main goals and objectives of each of these clusters. Of course, we have also the third document that is ProAéreo. ProAéreo is the document coordinated by the Ministry of Economy that contains all the main objectives and goals of the industry in Mexico. It's really, really like the public policy of the sector in the country. And more recently, we are also focusing on the space sector. So we published the Orbit Plan together with the Mexican Aerospace Organization, and we are trying also to identify the supply chain in the space and satellites industry. Well, a little bit of how we see the industry in the years to come. You can see that the production of aircrafts is going to double during the following 20 years. You can see here the main forecast, so we are going to pass from 20,000 approximately aircrafts to more than 40,000 aircrafts. And it's important because more of 80% of this number is going to be because of replacement and growth. And here we see a marvelous opportunity for Mexico in terms of production and manufacturing for the aerospace industry. What is right now, I don't know. Next, please. I don't know if you can help me to change to the, thank you very much. What's the national strategy for the government in terms of the aerospace industry? Well, it is related to design and engineering, as well as manufacturing, assembly, recycling, and MRO. All these 5 items are really, really important for the Mexican government in order to develop. Right now, we are really focused on the manufacturing side, but we would like to be more focused on the design and engineering, of course, MRO, recycle, and other components of the supply chain. Next, please. Here you can see some opportunities in the Mexican aerospace industry in the supply chain. You can have fabrication of components, electrical and electronics, composites, machining, raw material, and special processes. Of course, we see a lot of really, really good business opportunities in the special processes, as you can see, like surface processes, heat treatments, as well as surface treatments, non-destructive tests, and also castings and forgings. And it's important to know that it's more important, more and more 4 and 5 axis in terms of the industry, as well as composites and special materials. Next, please. We are right now working together with FEMIA, with the public and private entities, and mainly, the previous one, please. That one. And we are together working with certain offices of OEMs and Tier 1 located in Mexico. Some examples is United Technologies, Honeywell, Airbus, Boeing, and Rolls-Royce. We are working together with them in order to identify potential products and components that can be produced in Mexico, or in order to attract companies that are part of this supply chain to come into Mexico and to invest in our country. And the final one, please, the follow. Thank you very much. Well, this is in Spanish, the map, but it's only to show you that Mexico is really, really strong in advanced manufacturing. Our recommendation as federal government, as ProMéxico, is to focus not only on the aerospace industry, but to focus also in other industries that are growing in the country. As a company that are part of the supply chain, it's important to have a diversified client portfolio, and you can see that if you can be a supplier in the automotive industry, and you can be a supplier of the aerospace industry as well. We are going to be talking about certifications later on, but our recommendation is to diversify your investment portfolio, your client portfolio, as one of the most important things you have to do here in Mexico. And that would be all from my side in this presentation. We are really, really glad to help you. We have 41 offices abroad in all the world, ProMéxico offices, as well as offices in all the country. Please feel free to approach our offices abroad or in Mexico in order to get more information about potential supports and services. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Armando. So now we're gonna move to the question part, in which I'm gonna ask a few questions to Jose Luis, not only as Fokker GKN, but also as a former representative and an actual representative of some of the airspace associations that we've been working with. And then I'm gonna proceed to ask also questions to Armando in regards to the challenges and the kinds of support that you can offer the supply chains throughout Mexico to get integrated. So Luis, the first question that I would like to ask you is, on the Fokker GKN perspective, how do you find the supply chain, or what are the challenges you're finding to locate and develop suppliers in Mexico, or if they're not here, to attract them to integrate your supply chain?
Going to that question, I think it's interesting, but for GKN and Fokker, as well as any other company, when you go to the aerospace industry, around 60% of the cost of the final product is the material. So if we don't go and develop the local supply chain or Mexican supply chain, I think in the long term we don't have future. So it's not optional. I think for GKN and Fokker, we are seriously thinking and strategies on how to develop our supply chain in Mexico. In fact, so in numbers, we start with 5% integration in Mexico. After 5 years, we have 25%, and our ambition is to have 50% in the next 5 years. In conclusion, as we speak, we're having a seminar with potential suppliers, and I think the key is first, they find a clear packages for the suppliers. I think we need to classify the products in A, B, C, and D, starting with the A, which is simple products that the new companies can start with. It's low investment, it's low volume. So we have a matrix internally in Fokker GKN where we say if a new supplier is coming, give them easy parts, low volume, so they can grow step by step, and in the future they can be a good supplier. In some cases, we'll also give them just test orders to give them the opportunity to get certification in 9100 or whatever they need in the NADCAP. So I think the right way to go is go step by step with small suppliers, tier 2s, tier 3s, and show them the roadmap that we're looking for, and involve them since the beginning on easy parts and start from there.
Okay, thank you. One more question in regards of the supply base. We are seeing a lot of presentations. With yours, we saw a little bit of the forecast, but then with Armando's, we saw also the famous backlog we've been hearing about with the OEMs, with the commercial ones, the big ones. And the key question is, if there was a company here that wanted to get integrated into the supply chain, what recommendations would you give them? What are the key steps that they would need to follow in order to become integrated part of this supply chain, in order to be more competitive?
Okay, as we know, my recommendation is first, look for business jets. Even the market is ups and down. let you start with low volume. If you go to commercial, like the Boeings, like the Airbus, it's more risk for the company, and my suggestion is to look for work packages with business jets or low volume production. They don't want to make a lot of money, but given chance to get maturity. So my first recommendation is to start focusing on a specific sector or niche on the market that you are looking for. Second is be prepared before asking for a package. Make an internal review of your capabilities, of your infrastructure, your quality systems, and a huge recommendation is to have the 9100 certification as part of the intention or clear intention to go in this market. And I think also through FEMIA, we're working together with FEMIA and also with ProMexico. I think contacting FEMIA with your ambitions can help you to get the right customer to start with.
Okay, so these are key recommendations, and if they wanted to approach a tier one like you, or to be integrated, which way should they go to, or how could they be integrated? If companies are here in Mexico, or if they're not here but they're planning to serve your current demand, where would they be able to go, or how can they approach you?
They can approach directly through me. My contacts are there, and I can send you to the right people on the supply chain offices. So, but I think first contact the plant, and from there we can send you the contacts for the right supply chain people.
I have another question, and that's based on the challenges that you have found. We know and we've seen a lot of suppliers that are approaching different buyers, and it's usually a paradigm of a lot of small companies trying to sell what they have, their products and services, but usually we have heard and we have seen that they're not competitive enough. So how do you determine the level of competitiveness or maturity that you require from those suppliers, and how can they overcome that? How can they know their level of maturity, and how can they become ready in order to start working with a tier one like you?
Okay. So internally, all my career I have been starting up companies in different parts of the world, and I personally define a matrix where you can see the maturity of your company. Also, we can help you to define where you are comparable with the, I would say, the blue chips companies or the global companies. I think starting with, we call 10 factors, is 10 factors that all the companies have to follow. We can share that with you also as part of the coaching for starting up with a tier one like us.
Okay. Thank you, Jose Luis. That's a little bit on the private side. We are running out of time, so I would like to ask Armando, what are the different types of support that we can get from the government in order to perhaps accelerate the different suppliers that can get incorporated, or perhaps even to attract the suppliers that are not currently present? On your slide presentation, you presented some of the gaps that we have in the supply chains, such as castings, forgings, heat treatment, special processes. So what are the types of support that you can offer those companies in order to start operations in the country and get integrated, or the ones that are already here, how can they be supported in order to become more competitive and gain more business with tiers one like the one Jose Luis presented?
For sure, Javier. Well, first of all, the main goal is to identify the companies that specializes in those products or components. So for that purpose, we have a calendar of events worldwide. Just to give you an example, we are working in 2018 for Farnborough, for ILA Berlin, or this year for Nagoya Aeromart. So the first goal is to provide companies support to participate in these events, and also to show the potential of Mexico, of the country, in the aerospace industry. Also, we are, as I mentioned, we have programs of support provided by the Ministry of Economy in terms of certifications. Right now, as you may know, the AS certification and NADCAP are the most important certifications for the aerospace industry. And the Ministry of Economy is providing support to get these particular certifications, as well as support for training and other particular items for in the aerospace industry. So I would say that the main step, the first step, is to identify what companies are going to come through these events organized by ProMexico together with FEMIA. You are also doing an excellent work in identifying the supply chain opportunities. And of course, please approach to the Ministry of Economy, to ProMexico, in order to know all the programs of support in training, certifications, and also potential business opportunities that there are here in the country.
Okay. We are running out of time, but I would like to open perhaps one or max two questions from the audience. Does anyone have any questions, either for Jose Luis as an industry representative or for Armando from the federal government? So we have a question here. Who would be the person in charge to approaching your company to improve your supply chain with companies based in Mexico? Quality manager, purchasing director? Jose Luis, would you like to answer that?
So normally we have a special team, specifically in Fokijik, and most of the companies, they have a supply chain office or supply chain team, and that team is responsible for the pre-selection, certification, and authorization of a startup of suppliers. I think the supply chain head of the companies is the responsible for starting up that. Also, one of the suggestions I make to companies who are just starting, go close to any cluster that is close to your area, to your region. That will help you to find the right connections, and that will give you a little bit of more presence on the industry.
Okay. Thank you, Jose Luis. I believe we have no more time for questions. So just to wrap it up, as Jose Luis and Armando said, we're working together in the National Supply Chain Development Program. And over here, what we're trying to do is to ask companies like Jose Luis, like Fokker GKN, what are their needs? We're currently working with 26 different buyer companies between OEMs and Tiers 1. They've already provided different demands that provide us an integrated amount of about $368 million a year in different commodities. So what we're trying to do is to help them find, locate, audit, and develop those suppliers. So if you're trying to approach those different supply chains, perhaps what we would suggest is approach any one of us, approach us at FEMIA, at our booth, and see how we can help. Perhaps it'd be learning about your company. The key areas that all buyer companies want to know is obviously the company profile, who we're dealing with, the technology that you have, and this is an inventory of capabilities, the quality certifications and quality systems that you might have, logistics and supply chain integration, and finally, the most important thing, the cost competitiveness that you might have. So those are key questions that we might ask from all of your companies that might want to get integrated into different supply chains. And once again, the invitation is open to approach us through either one of us, through Jose Luis at his booth, perhaps Armando, or at our booth, and let's see how we can help you. Thank you so much for your time. Jose Luis, do you want to add something?
Just a quick observation. We're serious on our strategy of growing the Mexican supply chain to the point that we bring today the director of supply chain for the Americans. Also, we bring 2 senior buyers. We have a stand here. You can meet them today and tomorrow in our stand if you want to.
Alrighty, thank you so much for